like to call the meeting to order. Emma, there's a chair at the table if you'd like to sit up here with us. Yes, I would like you to sit up here. Welcome, everyone, to our November meeting. You will notice I did not bring any chocolate today. I figured you had your sufficient chocolate fix with Halloween, so no candy tonight. I didn't need it either. So you have received the agenda and the minutes. I know, we have a quorum with Rob, Michelle, Lise, me, and Paul, but I'd like a vote to allow Patrick and Emma to vote if need be. Is that
So moved.
so? Is there a second?
Who was here first? I thought Andy was here.
Oh, Andy, I'm sorry, Andy, I'm sorry. Andy and Patrick were here first. I'm sorry, Emma. To have Andy and Patrick
We waiting outside.
vote
It's 6
for
o'clock for the meetings.
this evening. So there's a motion for Andy and Patrick.
Yes.
Second.
A
So
second.
moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next time. Yeah, please, please, because we have plans. Okay. With your agenda, you were, and missing this evening due to hunting season are Bob and Matt, but they apologize for that. It's the time of year when they go out. So you have your minutes in front of you in the packet. If you take a look at that, if there are any items you would like to edit or correct.
On page 3, fourth down, Kevin Green, the second time it's mentioned, it's
Green, okay. Green, okay.
I had a couple things too. It looks like the page numbers were corrected from what I printed out.
Yeah,
But,
mine say, yeah.
Page 2E. In the middle, it says, Dunham reported Bob Magnuson, who has been mowing the trails, will mow the south field. I think that's supposed to be the north field, right?
The
We're
big
closer to
field.
his house,
Yes,
because Kevin is doing the south.
okay, so we correct that, then it's my error because I didn't,
So north.
Get my directions.
field. And then,
Magnuson is
should have two S's, yeah?
and then page 3D, under the discussion for paying for Kevin Breen, so the middle paragraph, starting with the third sentence, knowing that surplus exists in this year's conservation fund, Wolf Chuck moves to withdraw 3,000. I think that should say up to 3,000.
Where are you?
Wait, say that again.
The middle.
Second paragraph.
Okay. Page
Oh, second
3D,
paragraph.
middle paragraph, or second
Move to
paragraph.
withdraw.
Basically, we're talking about how to pay for it.
Yes,
I think what we want to do is motion to withdraw up to 3,000 of conservation with the balance, and then adding in something to the extent that the balance will be paid from the current 2024 budget.
and the
That's how we were
contribution,
paying for the
yes.
5,000. It was whatever was left over in
Yep.
the 2024 budget, plus whatever needed to come out of the conservation fund up to 3,000. Because I don't,
Plus the gift, right? Plus the donation.
yeah, so that's in the sentence above it.
Okay,
So I was just really correcting, we don't want to withdraw 3,000, it's up to 3,000. It doesn't mention anywhere else how we actually get to 5,000. So that's where I think we could add at the end of that sentence, with the balance of the expense being paid out of the current budget.
okay.
Or however it works with that to be.
Okay.
Maybe my brain isn't working. I'm not exactly sure how that's different than what you're.
Well, so it says up to 5,000, and we don't even have an authorization to spend the 5,000 from the current minutes. It's 3,000 and 1,000. So the way we looked at it was taking like 2,000 and change we have left over from the budget, plus Bruce, plus the extra from the conservation fund. So that's, again,
Green.
the motion, as I recall, is to withdraw up to 3,000
True.
with the balance coming from the current budget. Maybe that's not the right way to say it. Use up the current budget and take whatever else we need from the conservation fund. Is that?
So,
Yeah, I understand now. I understand what you're saying.
so we have the language worked out, or?
So I've changed it to say, Workshop move to withdraw up to 3,000 from the conservation fund to be used to help fund his remediation efforts, and then the remaining balance of the expense to be paid out of the town fund.
Well, I was actually thinking it would be the opposite. That
But
use
that-
up the
but that first and
expense,
then-
use
okay.
up the current budget, and take the remainder from the conservation.
I didn't think it was that way. I thought it was the conservation up to 3,000.
Well, it goes back to
I
if we
can go
take it
back
out of the
I can
conservation.
go back on meeting, but I could go back to lunch meeting.
We can work on that,
Together.
we can work on that language. How about that?
I mean, it goes back to the concept.
Yeah,
The money for the budget has already been expensed and paid by the taxpayers. Whereas the conservation fund withdrawal will have to go into next year's budget. So use up what we already have in our budget first and then take any extra later. But
I interpreted it the opposite way when we talked about it. So do we want to hold on this until we review the meeting?
Okay, are there any other changes that you wanted in this?
To be heard. Anything, anyone?
I move to approve the minutes with the exception of page 3, subsection, which will be approved in the fund later.
Can we do that? We
Say we
can't
just
split the minutes,
can,
yeah.
or we
We'll postpone it
Postpone
till
it till
December,
next
yeah.
time. I think it would be easier.
Is there a second to postpone this till the December
Second.
meeting?
I don't know if we have to.
Okay.
do
We have
that,
to.
but-
Bills and reimbursements. Next on the agenda that you have in front of you is bills and reimbursements. We received an invoice from the Exeter Squamscott River Local Advisory Committee for the annual dues. They're voluntary, but we've been paying them. And the cost this year is $300. You received a copy of the annual report with the email that I sent you, what they've done this past year. And in her paragraph, Teresa Walker wrote to me, please find ERLAC's 224 annual reported invoice for voluntary dues. ERLAC has raised the requested dues to a $300 fee to cover rising costs associated with conducting business, including meetings, reviewing and commenting on DES permit applications, public outreach, and maintaining ERLAC's website. Despite ERLAC working closely with the state agencies, the committee does not receive any state funding and relies on the financial support from towns in the watershed to continue its work for the good of the river.
What year is that for?
25, this will be the 24 annual report, these are the 25 dues.
Motion to approve ERLAC's 2025 dues, payment of 2025.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And as long as the minutes weren't approved from the last meeting, I think we should add 2025 dues for NHACC there. It just says pay annual dues, but maybe we should be more specific
In the minutes?
in last minutes. It's in under number 2,
Annual 224,
25.
25. Okay,
Right? You said it was for next
yeah,
year.
it was. Okay. Okay, that's passed. Next, we have a presentation on the Martin subdivision. Mark West is here tonight in place of Eric Salovich from Northam. Mark West is from West Environmental. I have for you, give me a moment to pass these out. I have packets, if you would pass out that side and this side. I think I have a packet. And also, we have 4 sets We have 4 sets of the subdivision plan and 4 sets of the driveway plan. So if we can share on each side of the table, I'll pass 2 on this side and 2 on this side. If they're also posted, the driveway is up here on the bulletin board. This is the first time that the Martin subdivision has come before us. So I think we should look at both parts of the plan. And in your packet you have the DES application received last night at 5 o'clock. And these are substitute pages for the first 7 pages of the document that's in your packet. Those are substitute, these are substitute pages. Let's see, you've got everything. So,
That's what I have. Okay.
That's slightly different. Look at the gray.
may I give a little background, just a quick background information, Mark?
Many pages.
This is for a 2-lot front subdivision on South Road. The packet contains the comments from TEC, our engineering firm, the planning board, our planner, Glenn Greenwood, wetland, and the wetland expedited application. You have the large plans for the subdivision as well as the driveway plan. So open up your plans if you want to look closely at both the subdivision and the driveway. Thank you very much, Mark. You can turn on your microphone if that's going to be helpful to you. Yep, right in the center. Yep, you're on.
Okay, so I guess, first of all, my name is Mark West. I'm a wetland scientist. I've done work for the town over the years, including your prime wetland study years ago. And I guess as far as the subdivision, I didn't know you all reviewed the subdivision, and I thought I was here mostly to talk about the wetland crossing. But if you have questions about the subdivision, I'm here with the owner, Brian Martin, and he knows all about the land and the history and everything. So we can answer those questions, or I can go into the wetland application, whichever you want me to do.
I think an overview of the plan, since this is the first time you've come before us, would just be good general information, Brian, if you would like to do that.
I think
But everyone has,
it's ultimately the purview of the planning, board, but for general purposes.
yeah.
Well, essentially,
But the wetlands would be
Yeah.
we'll do that. Essentially, the parcel that was chosen had to have frontage on South Road. It turns out it's directly adjacent to the Stevens access piece.
Yeah.
You all have a wetland crossing that you put in there.
Yep.
I don't know whether that was a trail permit or what kind of wetland permit you got for your crossing, but there was also a driveway, a parking area built right up to the property boundary.
Yep.
Where you park the cars.
Mhm.
And there's a trail with a culvert. So I don't know if it was, usually I'd see like a boardwalk or a little bridge for something like that. So I don't know whether you also need to drive vehicles in there, or it's more just the way they designed it. And I didn't, so we're upstream of that, but Brian specifically didn't want to be too, close. He wanted to give some space so the driveway is not as close to the actual, your crossing. But the wetlands, it's very, there's a lot of skidco, silty soil. So the wetland extends past the little drainage way.
Yeah.
That's a stream all the way up towards the road.
Okay.
And, but there's a piece of high ground, which is why they located the lot there, because across the wetland is a nice high area that they have a proposed house location.
Right.
And
And-
so the subdivision shows the parcel being taken off a 37-acre parcel that 3+ acres are being dedicated to a house lot.
Right, and the planning board has given the subdivision a conditional use permit at their last meeting, I believe. That's what Glenn told me this morning.
Okay,
So the lot, and they've notified the abutters. There were no negatives from the abutters to the properties that aligned with this, no concerns that were recorded, but they've had that public meeting. Only visitors, the only neighbors that came in were the Farias asking about the septic system, but all those questions were answered. And in your packet are the questions that came from TEC and Glenn Greenwood's comments about the subdivision per se. So just to let you know, they've done a lot of work, preliminary work on the subdivision, so it's to give you the background on that.
okay. As far as the other thing I did in addition to this permit crossing was I did, and it's in the document further back, I did a wetland evaluation report. I also have extensive photographs of the driveway and your existing culvert downstream from the proposed culvert, an aerial photo. And in the wetland evaluation report, I document my wetland delineation, which was done in April of this year. And then I document the functional assessment, which is required in order to determine the setback, the buffer. So I attached, so yours is based on the highway methodology, which is what the state references. One of the issues I have with the highway methodology is their form just gives you a bunch of numbers, and then you have to look into an index to see what those numbers mean. I prepared a functional assessment report that documents the physical features of the wetland that would tell you whether a function is present or not. So I believe it's easier to understand for conservation commissions, and I've submitted to the state numerous times, and they accept it also. But the state doesn't require a functional assessment for this type of project because it's minimum expedited. But the functional assessment, what I determined was that the functions that were principal functions of this wetland included some groundwater discharge. So in the hayfield and in the watershed, you have silt and loam with clay underneath, so water seeps out of the ground. And so it's called groundwater recharge discharge. There isn't a lot of recharge because it's sloping and it doesn't flood and it doesn't hold water for a long time, but there's discharge. So I determined that function was present. And then I also determined that sediment toxicant retention was present, that even though it's not, doesn't pond for a long time, with all the dense grass and vegetation and the fact that the slope isn't that steep, there's the ability for this wetland to trap sediments that might otherwise flow off the site. And then I also documented wildlife habitat as a function. Most wetlands have some sort of wildlife habitat function. This has field habitat, some amphibian habitat, and songbird habitat, and it's generally has wildlife habitat. So with those three functions and the buffer width that numbers that add up, it adds up to a 60-foot buffer to the wetland. And that's including the wetland that's not just the part that's crossed, but the whole wet meadow, all that's next to the house, the proposed lot site. So that's in the package that's going to the DES. And then as far as the actual permit, this is a single-family lot with a single driveway. The driveway is crossing a Tier 1 stream, which is a stream that has less than 200-acre watershed. This has less than 25-acre watershed. It's really just a field that drains down into it. And it also has a culvert that is designed to handle the 50-year storm event. Your culvert is a 12-inch culvert on the downstream end. Our culvert is a 15-inch culvert. It's also reviewed and stamped by a professional engineer. So with those elements, it qualifies for a Tier 1 crossing and for the minimum expedited wetland permit, which is what we're doing tonight. We're coming here to see if you will sign it, then it's minimum expedited and it gets permitted in 30 days unless they ask for more information. So that's the overview of the impacts. The total impacts are 2,873 square feet of the forested wetland and 28 linear feet of the 2-foot wide stream channel. And it's not really a typical stream, it's a swale. There's not a lot of scouring because it's not a very big watershed and there's never a whole lot of flow going there. So that's the overview of what I've prepared, and I'm ready for questions.
I do have some questions. This is my first minimum impact DES document, so I had some questions. I talked to Glenn this morning. I just want to go over that and voice them tonight, if that's fine.
We're ready.
Okay. In the pack that I received last night, was there a cover, has this gone to DES or is this will go?
It will go. So the way this permit works is we prepare the information, we come to you, request your signature. If you sign it, then tomorrow I notify all the abutters, I get the receipts, and I come back here with the 4 copies, although you all have all your copies already. So there's 1 copy that goes to you, 1 goes to the planning board, another the town clerk retains, and then another goes to the select board.
Okay.
And then the 5th copy, in the old days, a year ago, would get mailed to the state. Now the state wants you to scan everything and do it online.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do
Okay.
after I do all those other steps, because I still need the town clerk's signature
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Keeps me busy, these
Yep.
permits.
So will there be a cover letter that goes with this permit application, and will we get a copy of that?
No, there's not a cover letter,
Okay.
but you have my whole report.
Right. Okay.
With everything about the wetland.
Okay. Okay, so it hasn't been submitted yet. Then I'm looking at my little blue notes here. I'm going through the pages. Everything looks okay. You've signed off on things. Once you send the report, all the required signatures and initials will be on the document that you electronically send to the state?
Yes, and we have our initials swearing
Yep.
to tell the truth. And we have, once we get the town clerks and yours, then that will be scanned and that's what gets sent.
Okay, okay. So the copy hasn't gone to the town clerk. That was one of my other questions. That
No,
happens
I can't
after
go
this.
to her till I
Okay.
get your signature.
Okay. Just leafing through, on page 1 of 1, which is the expedited minimum impact wetlands permit application review process, which is after the
Right,
signatures,
that's to explain to everyone.
how it happens.
Right.
When does the 30-day period start?
When the DES receives and does their intake.
Okay,
And that's why they want you to do the online, because they do it that day.
Okay,
And you should have seen during COVID, you'd drop a package off and it would be a week or more before they opened it up and
Interesting.
stamped it in.
yeah,
And with everybody these days wanting, you know,
yep,
not wanting to take quite as long if they can avoid it.
okay. So we'll be notified, when we get our copy, we'll know that it's been submitted and the 30-day period starts if
Yeah,
necessary.
they will do a letter saying your application has been accepted.
Okay,
And you will get a copy of that
Okay.
letter. It will be
Okay.
mailed to you, though.
okay,
But by signing this, we're saying we don't have any comments or
I know.
objections, so it doesn't really apply to
yeah,
us per se.
right, right. And the document that goes to the Historical Resources Department, that's done by DES, they inform,
No, we have to do that.
oh, you have to do that.
But you
Okay.
don't do, that's part of the federal permit.
Okay,
And you don't do that until this is applied.
okay, thank you.
And yeah, we get to check for historic resources
Okay,
because the federal agency has jurisdiction.
the first map that appears in this is a colorful map with green. There's a red flag where the town-owned property and the Stevens easement meet. What does the red flag mean? I'm just curious.
That's the USGS map, and this red flag is, I didn't put it on there. This is a fish, I use the Fish and Game topo maps
Okay.
because it has all the conservation land and
Okay.
Best hunting spot, you're not supposed to put it on there. Oh my God, you put that on the map?
Is this where the bridge would be that crosses over Dudley Brook?
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
this is a fish,
Yeah, I'm just,
it has to be related to Fish and Game. It's not on, our-
Yeah, that looks like that is where.
It's a point.
Okay.
it's on your land, not
Okay.
ours.
no, just curious why, I see a red flag and I'm going to ask a question.
Turn right. I
Yeah.
think it's-
Okay.
Will
and-
there be any impact to the access point for the trail system at all from the subdivision?
No, but you all did fill right up to the boundary of the property. And I think may have gotten a little over it.
No, we had a wetland survey done by CCAP Environmental that flagged the wetlands.
Yeah,
So we did go close to the wetlands, but.
no, I'm not talking about the wetlands, I'm talking about the property boundary. But it's okay, the bounds are all in place.
For
So
the,
are you saying there's some remediation that needs to be?
No,
done?
no,
No. We went close to the boundary.
yeah,
Yes, we did.
okay,
to get the cars in,
Exactly. We only have 50 feet.
right.
that's right. So the next map points out where the photographs, the 1 through 8 photographs are, the view that you have in the next 8 photographs.
Right.
Looking towards the trail, looking from South Road, looking where the culvert's going to go, et cetera, where the intermittent stream is, so
Yeah,
all that's pretty
All
clear.
that stuff.
Okay. Will any of this flow into the right-of-way for the Split Rock property? Will it?
The culvert we have flows under and it
Okay.
continues through the access, Stevens access.
Okay,
Is it Split Rock or Stevens?
Split rock.
Split Rock.
Oh, okay,
It's Split Rock, yeah,
got it.
okay. Match. On the next colorful map, the big dark-colored map, there are 2 blue lines. Is that the
That's just
area that will be affected?
a rough idea of where the wetland boundary is.
Okay, okay,
And a location of where the driveway is
okay,
and where the wetland crossing is.
okay.
And then where the house site is.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I thought, but I thought I'd ask. Okay. There's an October 20 letter in here from West Environmental. I never received that.
That's when I apologize. That's when I originally did the letter and then I didn't
Okay,
send it out till now. So I apologize.
No,
I
no,
could've-
just
I could
curious.
have done yesterday's date, but I had already worked on it.
so no changes.
No change.
Okay, thank you. Stabilization. Sorry for all these questions, it's just first time.
That's why we're here.
Is the driveway going to be impermeable? Are you gonna pave it? Or is it dirt or gravel?
4-7. And the orange and tan map just shows where the abutters are that touch the property.
Right, that's
you've got-
using your
Tax map.
GIS tax map. I probably am gonna actually get an exact copy of your map because I've had a couple of the reviewers say, how do I know this is the tax map
Oh,
for the
yeah.
town?
Yeah.
So I'll probably add that to the state one, but
Okay.
this is accurate because you all created it. And then we have the list of abutters.
Yes, and I'm surprised that it's a very low number of abutters that surround the property, so it's interesting. Okay, and you said that the 7 replacement pages at the very beginning, just information that didn't take when you saved the document?
Yeah, the yes and no thing disappeared. I don't know.
Okay,
I had to redo it today because something happened. Some of their forms have glitches in them. And I, like, one of my descriptions, I only have one line where I can, and I've talked to them and explained to them, because what it does is it will disappear off the page. And if it's a digital copy, apparently you can click on it and see the rest of it.
Yeah.
But if it's a printed copy,
doesn't show up.
it's all gone. So that's why I had to be very concise in my description there.
So those were my questions. Are there questions from anyone? Just to let you know, this is the 3rd version of the plan, as I understand, of the overall subdivision plan. That it went once and some suggestions were made and those changes were made, and then a second version, and this, what we have tonight, is the official final version, so to speak. Okay. Okay. Rob?
So my question goes to the location of the driveway and whether there were any other potential options. So I'm not sure if on the plan, the wetland delineation is the complete delineation along South Road or not, or whether, because like where the wetlands stop here, it seems like if the lot was reshaped a little, the driveway potentially could go up. Sorry, I'm on the bigger map.
This is a large.
Like, just wondering if just to the left of the lot line proposed.
Here?
Yeah, like whether or not,
This is all wet.
how far over
I
does it?
walked all the way through this because the surveyors had, there was some sort of mowed trail at some point there, and they had showed a trail, and I was like, none of that.
So that's my question, like, you
It's all
didn't build
wet.
it.
I flagged all the way up to here, but then I walked.
Sorry,
here.
but when you say, can you just be more specific? When you say it's all wet, how far along South Road does the wetland go to?
It can, my delineation stopped around here, but the wetland, this is wet here, and the only upland is way over here.
Okay, so that was my
And so
question.
you'd have to go
Yes,
all the way across here,
no, I
and
understand.
you'd be twice as,
No, I understand. That's why I wasn't sure whether or not that's where your delineation stopped or that's where the wetland stopped. Because on the map, it looks like there's potentially uplands just to the left.
here?
Yeah, right where your little wetland markers.
No, this is actually the low marker, and this is all wet.
Okay,
All going up here. My wetland boundary stopped here, and it starts back up here.
okay. I think you're answering my question already.
Okay.
By moving it to the left to
Okay,
an
here,
upland would not make any
this was
sense.
the narrowest place,
Right.
and we could have gotten a little narrower if we crammed it right up against the property boundary, but maybe a couple, maybe 10, 20
Okay.
square feet.
Yeah, because obviously our question is this the best place to cross?
Right,
So that's what I was trying, which sounds like it is.
I believe so.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone? Patrick, you have a,
I'm perplexed. How much raised elevation are you gonna give the driveway, or is it just gonna be straight on? Like, are you gonna have to build up a road bed?
They're definitely gonna have to build up a road bed, but, I don't think it has to be all that high. I don't know.
Is that on the driveway plan?
Yeah.
Is it?
So in terms of, you're bringing it up about 2 feet.
You want a copy, Brian?
So low point of,
Yeah, it doesn't look, I mean, I think there's a little bit of grading here and a little bit, I mean, it's a couple feet higher. It's not a real wetland system, so it's slightly sloping down and pretty flat on the bottom, and then you can see all the topo lines going up. But I don't know if they've designed like the exact elevation. I mean, they show a width here for the crossing.
Yeah.
And so it's raised up a couple feet.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an engineer, but that's what I got. Like 2 feet, 12 feet wide at the top, slope down about 2 feet thick. Kind of be adequate for the 15-inch culvert.
Anyone else? Lise? No?
What, plans are in place to maintain the culvert? Moving forward, once it's constructed. And I know these culverts can fall into disrepair. Is there anything in the plan that is gonna require, maintenance?
So it's a plastic culvert, so, I mean, it doesn't deteriorate. And the only maintenance would be if you got sticks or something falling in front of it.
Yeah, I mean, stuff gets in, you have to clear them out.
Right,
I
I'm
mean,
sure, the homeowner, if they drive over it every day, they'll probably just pick the sticks out of it. Typically, with a minimal 12-inch culvert, they do that so it don't get clogged. Stuff flows through. And this is 15-inch, so I wouldn't do that.
I'll make a motion to approve signing the expedited wetland permit.
I'll second it.
Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming tonight. Now, I can sign that electronically. What happens with that?
I was gonna bring it right over here for you to sign.
Okay.
Mark, do you want any of these copies?
No, I have to give these all back to the planning board. These are the
All.
planning board's copies.
Okay,
Yes,
sorry.
all of these go back to Mark Kennedy,
Thank you.
planning.
I think so. This.
Planning board. Any other plans?
would've-
Patrick, yep,
I have a stack of them. They're coming.
yep.
And here is the copy for you to sign, authorized commission.
Okay.
That's a fancy map. I don't think these are any of them in order.
Oh, it's in the report that we just got, where's,
That is the one I had. This is this other
the
stack.
report.
And
that
we'll
they
get a
she
copy.
That's,
attached from
yeah,
Ashley.
You will
These
get
are
a copy.
Okay,
But
There we
these
go.
are unscrewed with.
anything else? Thank you so much. Thank you, Brian. Good luck with it. You're welcome. So they'll appear before the planning board next Thursday? Yes,
Those are-
yeah, for the next
I'm playing
phase.
ball. They're his.
Okay. Get rid of this.
And this is also one.
Just give me a minute to put all these papers aside. Are we still on? Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Good luck with that.
Yes.
That was a lot of paper.
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, thank you for your questions and the discussion. I wanted to give you a fuller update. The intent has always been to complete the easement by the end of the year, and that seems to be, we're on line for that. What we're waiting for, what CELT is waiting for is, they sent the final version for review dated 10/23/24. That's the most recent draft of the easement. Per Ben Engel, they're waiting for the surveyor to provide the baseline documentation report. And they will ask, and in the meantime, they're going to ask the CELT attorney to work on filling out the dates in the document when the deed is recorded, when it's signed. Their attorney will write the legal description of the exclusionary area, and they'll remove at the end, there's a homestead line that Ben thought was not necessary, but he's still gonna have legal check that. And this should be ready in the next couple of weeks. Paul has been asked to review on behalf of the Select Board and compare the easement to make sure there aren't any other changes, but he has the most recent version. And I heard from Ben today. Heard from Ben at 3:30 today that he expects, they've heard from the surveyor, the report should be ready within the next 2 weeks for review. And the question is, do they have to have an appearance before Concom if these changes are minor, if it's just clarification of the document?
Well, the only thing that has to happen now, right, is the select board to sign the easement, so I
Yeah.
don't see why.
Okay, so once Paul,
We're looking at a closing, and he said in his email that I'm reading, December 13th or 20th, sometime in that neighborhood.
okay,
And it might be used, but I think sometimes the Conservation Commission actually signs.
Yeah.
the easement, so
yeah. So we'll get the final document.
But we're gonna have an executory interest, so the town will be signed, whether it's, I don't know which group signs it.
Let's see what they have
And will
on
that
the
have to,
signature line.
will that have to go to town council or it has?
It
That's
has.
a good question.
The document went through town council before the select board signed off on it. And the changes, or what I notice in the yellow lines that show up on the document, it's just dates that need to be filled in, the page of the deed registration. The exclusionary paragraph has not been drafted. The the attorney for CELT is gonna do that. And there's some dates at the bottom, but I think everything else is in place. And Ben thought, or said today in his email, that he felt it would not need to go back to the select board, that town council has already looked at it. So we're just gonna have select board.
Like to answer that question, looking at signature lines, that just has the select board signature.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the voting has been, but it seems like any contract you would vote to sign.
Correct.
So I'm not sure what you say, it doesn't need to go back to the select board.
No,
Oh,
I didn't mean
that's
that.
what you
No,
said.
for another review. No. It just goes back to the select board for signing.
Upon reviewing it and making sure the
Right.
easement,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
comports.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
So that's it. So December 13 or 20.
And so that'll be signed, then they're still trying to close by year end.
Yes. We have the funds in our account. No other issues have arisen.
Good.
So,
I can send you this 35-page document
I
if you
would
want,
like
if you
it.
want to review
I
it
would
for me.
like- No, I don't want to review it, but I would like to look at it. I don't know if we've actually been sent.
Are you like distinguishing between looking and reviewing?
Yes,
it-
looking has no responsibility.
lot more.
Reviewing implies responsibility.
we did look at it, especially since it's an agricultural easement and there were questions about what does that mean? And the state has approved the description of what an agricultural easement entails. And the town of Brentwood accepted the state version of what an agricultural easement is. And that went through the review process before the select board signed.
No, I'm not looking.
Yeah, no.
I'm just curious, because I don't think I've ever seen it, so.
I have 2 folders right now with fuller stuff, so I'll clean those out once this is signed.
Can you just, for my edification,
Yes.
as I'm reviewing,
Yes.
the exclusion area, what is that exactly? What does that mean?
That's the area that is set aside for instance, in our easement, that 5 acres were set aside for the owner to do whatever he wanted to do with those 5 acres.
That's the
The rest
exclusionary.
was
Usually,
agricultural.
like, the
It's the
existing
house,
house.
Usually
existing
includes the
structures.
house,
Yeah.
It's excluded from the easement.
Yeah.
Excluded
So
from
it
the
just
easement. Okay,
has no limit, it just stays the original.
Yeah.
okay.
So he'll
Makes
do
sense.
the dimensions and the configuration of that. Okay, on to the next item, Open Space Committee. The event on October 3, letters were sent and notes were sent to attendees and non-attendees. I know there's been one conversation and follow-up in person with someone. We have 8 or 9 other people that were visited, and when that person, the volunteer, returns from a trip, we'll do some follow-up there. We next meet on the 20th of November to discuss and update contacts with individual landowners. Jeff is organizing all the records on this, so we keep tabs on what's happening with each landowner who we've had a conversation with or communicated with in some degree.
Bringing up our technical
Yes,
expertise.
yes,
Our computer skills, he's checking our computer skills.
a massive list of things. A question did come up in open space, and this is something we'll talk about a little later in tonight's meeting. Years ago, the town did hold the easements. I know my easement is held by the town. They stopped doing that and relied more on land trusts. But the question comes up, if there's a landowner who does not want to go through one of the existing land trusts, would the town be willing to consider holding easements again?
Sorry, I'm being disruptive.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, it's like having children in the other room. You can ignore them. Yes, time out.
This is without
Time
candy.
out. I didn't bring any. I have one piece probably in my bag if you'd like a piece.
No, he's saying without
Without
candy.
candy.
Oh, without
Just
candy.
sugared up.
Okay. So the question that the Open Space Committee has talked about a little bit is approaching the town, asking whether they would consider holding an easement again. And to that end, there's also the discussion about what kind of financial support should the town have to protect itself from monitoring costs or any legal costs. So that's something we'll talk about down the road in this meeting tonight. But that did come up in an open space, whether the town would consider it. Probably very basic, similar to what they had before, but easements have evolved over the last decade, and they're very different than they were 12 years ago. So that's a question. Anything else on open space? Rob, you're part of it?
We're talking about creating a plan to stay in touch and engage with potential landowners over the next year. So how do we reach out in an appropriate way and keep touching people to keep on the front of their minds in case an event happens or they have a change of, they want to get more information. So things like maybe walks on existing easements with easement holders, mailings of information. I thought of something else earlier, which I now can't think of at all. Sending out potentially putting together, we haven't even talked about something about putting together a little package on each property to show landowners why their property is an important piece in the overall landscape. Maybe it's as simple as the map showing all our conservation easements and where they fall in that puzzle, putting it together. So, just little simple things to mail out every few months to people or other events, just to try and engage with all these prospective landowners.
Lise? Anything else that we've talked about?
Covered it.
Okay. That's it on open space. Next, I have on the agenda the consultant. The contract was signed by the select board a couple of meetings ago, and Anna was here in town last Friday and signed the contract, so we're all in place. The contract was reviewed by Primex, by town council, her council, and Paul. So it's gone through 4 stages, and it has been signed. She's going to attend our Open Space Committee meeting on the 20th, sort of a get-to-know and overview and help us work on the plan. So she'll be there on the 20th. We meet at 5 o'clock in the room down there. Next is the Stevens Field. the discussion that's included in our minutes from last month of hiring a contractor. The initial walk through the Stevens Field was with Kevin Breen and Rob Wolfchuk, and after our meeting, we scheduled a walkthrough. I was included to review exactly what kind of work would be done. He submitted a contract. It was reviewed by Primex and signed by the Select Board. According to an email from Kevin Breen a couple of days ago, the work is tentatively scheduled for November 17 and 18, depending on the weather. What,
That's Sunday.
I don't know what days
Okay.
he works.
Okay, yeah.
17 and 18, yeah.
It's a Sunday, Monday.
Sign that one, thank you.
He signed the contract, yes.
He said
He did.
Sunday. That's what happens when you're in business, you work on Sundays.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, while the weather is,
Emma?
while you can still work. Yeah, while you can still work in the, given the weather. I did note if we had said at one meeting that perhaps the Trails Committee could get some volunteers in to do some of this work, but given the scope of it and the danger to volunteers, I've notified Deb that she's off the hook. They don't need to bring any volunteers in. I also notified the volunteer who mows the field that there will be work happening in a couple of weeks over on this side, so he's aware if he's going to be, I don't know when that other field will be mowed. It's dependent on the weather again. And we're also talking about if there's any grant potential for doing the kind of work, to get funding to do the kind of work that Breen is doing through our funding, if we can get a grant to do that next year for the other field, because it's a much larger piece of land. So that's something that will be in the works as well. NHAC conference is next on the agenda. Was November 2. There were 3 attendees, folks. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your experience? Yes.
So we trekked on out to Pembroke Academy and we have
The picture?
Fantastic
Not,
picture.
my printer isn't very good, sorry.
But those are the keynote speakers who were from NHPR, the radio station that still goes on air apparently. Radio anyway. And the radio station does a 5-minute segment about New Hampshire nature in New Hampshire, and it's various sections about anything from birds to trees to fish and animals, and they gave us examples of what they had done over the last
25 years.
25 years.
Yeah.
25 years. And I thought it was a pretty good keynote. And then we had our breakout sessions. Fascinating. The one I quite enjoyed the most was a GIS trail mapping workshop, in which I was the youngest person there, and I was even lost on the technology. So I have high hopes for everyone doing it. But he was absolutely a whiz with mapping his trails, and he worked in the Hampstead Conservation Commission out there, making an Appalachian Mountain quality map for the Hampstead Community Trail System, which I thought was absolutely fascinating.
Yep. Michelle?
So yes, I attended also, we took 3 of the workshops. One that I took was conservation and mission basics. That was sort of, what our purposes are, what our powers are, where we get funding and such as that. I actually also got my very own book, which cost everybody else $20 that day, so attending that course was a choice. I also attended one about conservation agreement honoring. I was presented by a lawyer, so she had all kinds of stories about all kinds of challenges that have been, come up with that sort of thing. And then the last one we took was using a survey map, which I will admit, the course was called Survey Map Scavenger Hunt. So I thought it was going to tell us how to do scavenger hunt. And no, it was how to read a survey map. So it wasn't what I expected, but it was actually,
interesting.
it was good.
We had to put a puzzle together,
and
yeah.
find all the spots. So it was a good one. So, but definitely worth the trip. Had a great day.
And I attended the Natural Resource Inventory review, updating it. The second one was a conversation between about 15 people, what you can do without hiring someone come in to update your inventory of what you can do if you're starting from scratch to gather information. It was very interesting, and the ideas from all the different towns were fascinating. A lot of places can't afford the expense of doing an inventory, hiring someone, so came up with some very good ideas for updating that. And then I attended the scavenger hunt too with Michelle, because I thought, oh, that's going to be great. So it was well worth doing, this annual meeting, and we are getting our money's worth out of NHACCC. She commented that she had 137 inquiries when Barbara Richter gave her report on her work for the past year. Questions from members. I think I must have been at least 10 of those questions. So she's been very useful and very helpful, so it's well worth being part of that. So yeah, well
What would
worth
you
doing.
Say like each of you had like something you learned that you could share with us, or your like biggest takeaway.
The third session I went to, actually, particularly you mentioned that you wanted to make a pamphlet for each landowner about things that were valuable on their properties. And the third one I went to was with the the DNCR, the Department of Natural Cultural Resources subdivision Natural Heritage Bureau, which is a division of a division buried in the state government. And it's an office that manages this list of endangered plants and animals registered under the Endangered Species Act, but also the New Hampshire Native Plant Act, some RSA number that I don't have memorized. But you can request, as a conservation commission, you can request that kind of data, and you could do a property or chunk of your town by town kind of a property assessment, and that could be included into that. So that'd be my.
And that sort of falls into my middle workshop that I went to, getting citizens to go out and do the inventory of plants or trees that are on a certain parcel of property and starting to do your inventory that way. So
iNaturalist is the
Yep.
app that
Yep.
the Fish and Game folks were trying to
Yep.
encourage people to use
Yep.
to document stuff.
So well worth going to. Yeah. And the ride was fine. He drove, which was
I
great.
did drive.
Yes.
And the town does have a natural resource inventory.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know if it's easily shareable or electronic. I just have a
2000.
paper copy.
Yeah, I have a paper copy. 2007, I think it is.
Yes, and I think
Yeah.
maybe Rockingham Planning did it
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much that stuff
Was-
changes, so I think it's still.
This
Yeah.
was something that was brought up in my session. Was that ever shared with the Natural Heritage Bureau? Because
don't
they
know.
if it's done professionally and through like a town or conservation or county, they will import it straight into their database.
I don't know.
And
That's
they
prior to
encouraged
my
us
time.
to see if that was something we had done. So
I can look back and
Yeah,
find that.
maybe, see who made it for us.
yeah,
And ask if it's RPC, they might have records. You
Yeah.
would think as, a planning commission that they would potentially share it with
hopefully.
other agencies or things. But I think it is interesting. I have looked through it. There's a lot of big maps, but I don't know if we could digitize it or if it is digitized.
I have one copy of it, and you're right, the maps fold out. There
Yeah,
are the
there's
big
a lot.
maps. Yeah.
But it is, I think, a chapter of our
Yeah.
master plan,
Yeah.
so it might be,
Yeah.
it would be interesting for people to look at.
And you mentioned the master plan. I don't know when the last time that the conservation or natural resources chapter was updated in the master plan. I don't know, but that might be something to look at since they've been working on the master plan chapter by chapter. But they asked the select board for next year to put in funds so that the planning board would like to do the entire master plan at one time instead of chapter by chapter, because there are some that are really out of date.
Some were typed still.
Yeah.
Typewriter.
Yeah.
That's out of date.
Yeah, that's out of date. So well worth doing. I mean, I'd encourage people to check their website. They have a lot of good information. There's a listserv that I'm getting emails all the time about issues that are coming up in different towns, and seeing what people are doing is very valuable. So if you want to sign up for that or get on their mailing list, it's really worth doing. So
Michelle, so on the easement monitoring, hearing the stories, like, how do you reflect on that versus the town taking on easements or not? Like how?
No,
how-
it wasn't so much problems that the town itself was facing. It was just sort of various, this property was put in conservation, 50 years ago, and now all of a sudden there's a different roadway around it or through it, or so it was those kinds of things, not necessarily anything that we would face, but just there's all this crazy stuff out there, and she was an attorney.
Yeah.
And that's what she
She saw the
did,
worst
so
of the
she- yeah,
worst.
so she just had a lot of stories.
Okay, thank you.
I
Yep.
will just say too, I think most, if not all, of the workshops held that day are gonna be on the NHACC
That's true.
website. So if there was a topic, if you happen to look at the topics of that day and it was something you wanted to watch, there would at least be like a PowerPoint or something on
Yeah.
there if you wanted to.
Yep. Okay, thank you, everyone, and thank you. It was a good trip. Next, annual easement monitoring, if there's any update, Lisa, I know they've started.
Yeah, they've definitely started. I'm kind of trying to tackle like 2 a week. So I reached out to you. Reached out to Patrick. We're doing
Tomorrow?
tomorrow, the one next door to you.
Yep, yep.
So, yeah, they'll be done. I don't know what your schedule. Yep.
Anyone else to volunteer?
Have we encountered any issues in the last few years, like with the butters or anything? Nothing.
No,
Good.
not really. I mean, I did a walk with Tracy Waldron on the Bertram parcel, and she had sent a letter a couple of years ago to all the butters on.
I received it as a
Pretty.
butter.
Yeah. So yeah, just one of them was where one of the landowners was actually moving the boulder wall. And,
Diverting their drainage.
yeah, in terms of not impeding the drainage from continuing on the property. And she said she asked him to not do that.
Yeah.
The boulders are actually on property.
They had actually historically had issues with all of the abutters on Peabody, or some of them, which is why the only public access that they allowed in their easement was from South Road versus coming in through the sides.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's the only one she's.
Yeah, so that's mostly had
Been dealing.
butter issues, people dumping their leaves and whatever.
Okay, thank you, Lise. Conservation Stewardship Fund. Let me see if I've skipped anything here.
Well, you skipped.
I have skipped a whole page.
business.
I did, okay.
Budget.
January speaker,
How about
okay.
The budget.
Thank you. This page is sticking together. Okay. The budget, just to recap that, we've gone through the budget process, and as you know, the Select Board approved, the Budget Committee approved with an increase of $1 to $12,703. To date this year, as of 10/31/24, we've expended 65% of our budget, which is $8,282. That includes the legal fees to bond counsel and some dues and registration for the workshop, for the conference, and dues to NHACC, a little bit for mowing, and some postage for things we sent out in open space. So that's 65% of our budget. Anticipated expenditures over the next 2 months through December 31. Some supplies, possibly something from our budget for Breen, and consultant, maybe if she's coming to the 20th meeting, maybe something in December. Anything that's left over, we'll try to encumber for the following year, if we can do that.
Well, yes, but in theory, we, depending on what you find from researching the last meeting,
Yep,
you would
yeah,
spend it all.
that's what I said, yeah,
Reduce
yes,
this.
the conservation fund. Yeah, I said Breen, I have a line in here for
How
Breen.
much do you expect there, do you estimate to be unspent?
Well, if we're at
I know it's 65% of what the number is to start with.
12,702,
So that would be $4,000 or $5,000.
Remaining, yes.
just under, yeah. Yeah. Yep. So we'll see.
Yes, we have some dues we approved tonight and
Yep.
other things.
And we'll have mileage for the trip and some office expenses and anything for Breen.
Okay, great.
Okay. January speaker, or new business, under new business, January speaker. We had talked about having a speaker every other month, and we've had some wonderful people come and speak to us on that basis. And nothing today because of Northam. I knew we had a presentation, so Bob Stevens had offered to do something. He was able to finally confirm someone for January. Andrew Fisk, who's the Northeast Regional Director of American Rivers. And I have a bio on him here if you wanted to see or learn a little bit more about him. He recently served as the Bureau Chief for Natural Resources at the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, overseeing the state's fisheries, wildlife, and forestry programs. From 2011 to 22, he led the Connecticut River Conservancy as Executive Director. He's had administrative positions with the Departments of Conservation, Marine Resources, Environmental Protection for the state of Maine, including being appointed by the governor. He serves on the board of the Norcross Wildlife Foundation as well as the Connecticut River Atlantic Salmon Commission. He's on some advisory boards, and he was just appointed to this position at American Rivers in August of 23. You can find his full bio online under American Rivers or Andrew Fisk. So that would be in January. And I know, Rob, you're thinking about other months that you might find someone like March. You talked about possibly
Yeah.
March.
So we do have someone lined up for March.
Okay.
Emily Nichols is the Director of the Aquatic Resource Mitigation Program, otherwise known as ARM, which that's a division of the Wetlands Division of New Hampshire DES. So that's something that the town has used before. I had a brief conversation. There's a lot of interesting aspects of ARM, such as when a developer, not only in our town or anywhere in our watershed, which is the Salmon River watershed, they can give cash directly within the watershed before it goes to ARM, and when it goes to ARM, then we have to apply for it. So she could talk more about that, like if we had a shovel-ready type project or something we were working on. And then I also thought, like, one thing, that I'm not that up to speed on is, like Becky was saying, the change in the easements over all these years. So Becky and I talked briefly, but I thought if people were interested, we could ask Anna to give us an easement 101 discussion, potentially using the fuller easement, just to go through the different sections and why the different sections are in there. And, I don't know if I haven't read an easement in 10 or 15 years, probably. You probably are. Read them more, going out to the easements to monitor them. But I thought that might be interesting, and we would get to know Anna a little bit, who's our consultant. And so if people are interested in that, maybe we could arrange that. It would be a couple in a row, 3 in a row. But I think it's worth it. I think there's a lot of great things out there that we could learn about, and if people are up for it, that'll be up to you if you want to.
So that might be April. If you've got Emily in March, that might be April.
Or February or
February?
December. I think knowing about the easements is pretty important.
Yeah. I always hesitate to schedule big things in December
Yeah.
because that's such a busy month for everyone, and getting people there or attending an audience might be difficult.
Yeah,
So
I guess we could wait and see what else comes up on the agenda.
Yep.
I'll leave that one up to you. But Emily, I do have booked for March, and then I believe I forget, their deadline for applications is either at the end of March or May, or
okay.
I don't think we have anything on.
I think it's May. I think last year it was May. So yeah. Thank you.
Well,
Always willing, if you have any suggestions for people to speak to, bring it up at the board. Anyone you think would be valuable for their expertise to attend, that would be great. Next item, new easement inquiries, nothing public nothing as far as I know. And the next topic for just an overview is the possibility of establishing a conservation stewardship fund. Rob brought this to my attention at Open Space that a number of years ago a draft was created, modeled on something SELT does when they have their permanent funds to cover monitoring and legal. And I thought this might be something, since Open Space is considering approaching the town about an easement, we should be considering, if we do, we have the financial background for that. So would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure, that was a very good background. We had talked maybe 10 or 15 years ago in the Conservation Commission about doing what the land trusts do, which is whenever they do an easement, they take some amount of money, put it in an endowment so that the interest off that endowment can subsidize the costs of monitoring that easement. So as opposed to making that an obligation to future taxpayers, it's done at the time of the easement and all part of the economics. Because at that time, the town really wasn't interested in taking on any new easements, it never got pursued, given that it seems like there's a little more renewed interest from the current group about the town potentially doing easements. I thought it would make sense to be prepared for such inevitability, especially if something like that needed to go to town meeting to create like a reserve or some sort of specific dedicated fund. I didn't think it would be a good idea to mix it into the conservation fund, and I didn't think it would be good just to have like an internal thing that the town could possibly take in the future if they needed money. So somehow to ensure that some sort of dedicated fund and purpose. So I think at this point, you know, Becky and I discussed it really just to get a consensus from the group, whether or not this was something they thought would be worthwhile exploring further, which I could do, or if someone else is interested, I'd be happy to have someone else do it. Becky's volunteering Jeff for things.
No, he piped up about this, yeah.
So again, it's just really feedback if people think it's worthwhile. If there's no cost, we don't have anything to put in it, and there'd be, I guess, maybe some legal review cost if we came up with an actual policy. And we have a draft. You know, there is a existing, like I said, old draft, which.
What do you envision the cost of something like that would be to generate interest?
Yeah, so I think right now we're doing it ourselves, so the cost is pretty minimal, but like in the past, we did buy a GPS, a camera, you know, kind of everyone having like a good camera on their cell phone. There are other devices. I know you're using your cell phone, whether or not everyone did. Celt has like iPads with special software that can easily generate the tracks, and you take photos and it's all geolocated. So I don't know if that's something we want, but also the inevitability at some point that the group could turn over and we might have to hire someone again, like we have in the past, to do the monitoring. So I think now the most recent budget is, the amount you would ask for or put into the budget would depend on the nature of the easement, which goes into this, like how many abutters there are. If there's, you know, a big neighborhood behind it with 30 abutters, you're more likely to encounter problems that take more time versus a smaller one or something. So now I think they're going for 15, 20,000, which seems high, but I think what you're trying to do is you might have nothing on most of them, but you could run into one that's huge, right? Where you're in a lawsuit, which there are plenty of publicly announced lawsuits in different towns like Newfields and other places that, you know, run into the tens of thousands of dollars.
So you're asking for whether we should pursue this as a
I'm
concept and
consensus,
roughing it
'cause
out,
I don't
yes.
want to waste time.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to spend time exploring it with us and the select board and anyone else if people either don't think the town should take easements or we don't want to do something like this. I don't know.
Every easement Celt takes on has anywhere between a $15,000 to $25,000 donation to the
Yeah.
monitoring easement.
Yeah.
That's something that came up, and I'm sure it's in the Fuller stuff.
It is in the Fuller,
I don't know if it's a donation, but it's in the budget.
yeah. it's in
Yeah,
the budget.
It's a
donation was a
It's
very
cost.
loose.
Yes.
It's a cost of
Yes,
Yes.
a very loose word of the word
Yeah.
donation.
Yeah.
Required donation.
And I think what we heard from Spiniff the other couple months ago was their
Yes.
stewardship
Yeah.
costs are basically the same,
Yeah.
around 20,000. So the town doesn't necessarily have to have that much, but I think it's just the idea that these are perpetual liabilities of the town and we have no funding put aside for that future expense.
For the easements that the town already holds.
Correct. Well,
Yeah.
we can't, I mean, we could do something about it, but I'm not
Yeah,
suggesting
No.
that. I'm suggesting this would be for future
right.
ones if the town got to the
Yep.
point where it was accepting.
A good point is that, it sounds like there's some overlap there between,
Yeah, so when Celt is the primary easement holder, they have the financial obligation to monitor it, so the town does it. So in that case, we wouldn't be taking as much, taking the full amount, but as an executory interest holder, which like will be for Fuller, we have an obligation as the town that if Celt were to disappear, not do their job, that we would step in and become the primary person responsible, in which case we would then take on the expense. So this policy does consider the town putting money into this fund for any executory interest responsibility as well, but just at a much lower rate.
So you're asking
Well, people's thoughts on the concept and whether or not
to
we
explore
should
the concept and
invest
come
in
up with what might work, a
Yeah, and
proposal.
especially if it's something that we think has to go to town meeting.
Yeah.
You know, we're on an annual lag or an annual delay. If something comes up next year, we can't do this until it gets approved, you know, in March of 25. 6. What year?
Yes,
What's that?
Pretty modest.
yes.
Expense?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it would be mostly trying to figure out who would need to approve it and where it would lie within the town's finances.
Are you looking to raise a capital reserve fund for this, or or just take it off every time someone does a new property?
That.
Right. So the cost would come out of whoever's donating their land or putting their land into an easement. It'd be an at 15 or whatever
Yeah,
fee to the
yeah.
top of it.
Right.
The question I
yeah,
have
it
for that
costs,
is, are we just going to take money from the bond and put it into this fund?
Mhm.
Okay.
If we're already paying,
If it's-
we're already paying it, as you point out, to, third party,
Correct.
and we're taking more money out to pay for it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can tell you through my experience with Celt, there's plenty of lawsuits over easements that cost a lot. Celt participates in a statewide insurance program that most of the land trusts are to defer their legal liabilities, which the town doesn't have. We would just be on the hook with no deductible to pay whatever it costs.
I don't know. And that's another angle of this. Yep.
Liability claim.
So,
So the expense would be potential some legal time to review whether or not it goes to town meeting, procedure.
and where it falls in the finance, does it become part of the trustees of the trust funds, or is it separate from that? Because, figure it out.
But I thought you were talking about this being added onto the top of each time you do it.
Yes, so there'd be no deposit into the account, but setting up the structure has some time and expense. But I don't know. I mean, personally, I don't think the town should ever take any more easements. But in the event it does, it would be nice to be prepared so that,
So let's do more easements and set up a structure.
Well, I think what would be good to know
Be sarcastic.
I know.
is, you know, if there's other towns that do continue to hold newer easements, and if they have something like this set up already. You know, one of the things, I don't like the idea of, you know, taking money and just holding it
Right.
for, you know, future lawsuits. Something that just doesn't sit right for me. You know, I'd like to know what our town does for any lawsuits, you know, that the planning board has had to deal with. You know, how are they financially, you know, paying for those?
Yeah, usually those get sent on, to Primex and then, indemnified.
So maybe you could ask that. Maybe you could ask them whether or not, you know, us having to pursue a landowner for not
Does there-
following an
Dover
easement would
does,
fall
yeah.
under our insurance policy.
This,
Pursuing a landowner, that would be different than being sued. So I
Well,
think
it would
when
be
we're,
us.
when we're sued for liability, then we send those on to Primex under our policy to defend. They have a duty to defend. If we were actively pressing a claim, they wouldn't.
okay.
I don't think that would
Well, that's
fall
what
within
this-
Primex's coverage.
Mostly it would be like a landowner that is infringing and built a building or something where they weren't allowed, the town would have an obligation to
To enforce.
enforce the easement, and if they didn't agree, then you would have to take them to court. The town would take them to court.
I think NHACC called to Barbara Richter to find out what other towns may have. I know Dover, Anna has said Dover has a lot of its own, that it's still taking easements in Dover. So there are some towns that are doing this, so doing a little exploration to find out, excuse me, to find out what's happening in other towns.
I don't think that would be covered if we were pursuing in that manner. If we were being sued because of some easement, because of liability, then that would be covered.
I mean, I'm happy to call them. I think the easiest thing is the people with the most experience that do the most easements spin it the other people. This is the process that they
Yeah.
come up with as the best way to protect themselves. So, you know, Dover might do a couple a year, if that, whereas the land trusts are doing 10, 20, 30 a year. So, but I'm happy to make a call. I don't think we need to talk about it more. And
We'll take it to open space and do a little search.
yeah, I mean, the only thing I
Information.
was thinking again is, as we're doing more outreach, if this were to come up next year, it would be nice to have something in
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
But chances of closing before 26 is small anyway.
Is small anyway, yes.
But you know, if you get a landowner that says, like Fuller's, I got to do it before the end of the year, then.
Yep.
I think we beat that one.
Okay, next, thank you, folks. Next on the agenda is PREPA. Receiving emails from UNH about a grant program. I've signed up for a webinar to learn a little bit more about the grant program. I think, Rob, you've signed up or for a webinar, and Jeff, you expressed some interest. Anyone is welcome to sign up for this. It's an information session. It's January 15. You can find this online, but I can pass this around or send the link. I can forward this to everyone if you'd like to attend the webinar. As much education as you want, we're willing to support, and anything you're interested in, I think you should pursue. So I'll send the link. And it's a Zoom thing, so it's not like you have to go anywhere, so it's good. PREPA, okay, offering a webinar. Just for information, more of an announcement, Sig Sauer in Epping has applied to DES for an alteration of terrain permit, moving something like 68,000 square feet of earth on their property for, I think it's a new field or a new, I don't even know what it is, for a 50-yard range permit, yeah. We were not copied on this. It went from Jones and Beach to DES and to Brentwood Municipal Clerk, Lamprey Rivers Local Advisory Committee. And Lamprey Rivers has expressed 7 concerns, and we were CC'd, as well as the Epping Conservation and Jones and Beach, DES, Epping Planning Board. Brentwood Planning Board. I went to Glenn and I said, do we have anything to say about this? And he said, this is for your information only. But if anyone has any concerns, we have until December 31 to express any concerns, according to the DES letter. I thought I'd send this on to Eric Turer and Jessica Balukas, who are on the URSLAC committee, to see if, just for their information, if they have any concerns, because Lamprey River, we're not in the Lamprey River watershed, I don't think.
Well, it sounds like if it's the Lamprey Advisory Commission, then it wouldn't also be URLAC,
I don't know, so I will pass this on, but Glenn has said we have nothing, there's nothing we need to do, But if there's a concern or if you want to get involved, you certainly can.
That's why we're in a butter.
Well, they sent it to us, and we're in a butter to
So
Sig Sauer, and
part
Sig
of
Sauer
Sig
has
Sauer
property is
is
on,
That property is in.
yeah. But the land that they're talking about moving is in Epping. So it's information only. So happy to pass this along to anyone. Yeah, oh, yeah, their concerns were about bullets, turtles, the wood turtles and the Blandings turtles that were on part of this property in 21. But stormwater is directed to the Piscataqua River, Piscataquis River. They've requested 4 waivers. The Sig Sauer has peak runoff control, channel protection, pollutant discharge minimization, and groundwater recharge. Riprap apron and plunge pool, woody debris they're concerned about, de-icing on the range, et cetera, et cetera. So they had quite a long list of things they were concerned about. So I can give more information to anyone. I only have one copy of this if anyone wants, but I'll send it on to Eric and Jessica and Teresa Walker. Sig Sauer. Miscellaneous announcements. Recreation, I didn't list them on the agenda. Recreation, I met with Andy Gray on Monday. I've been sitting in on some recreation meetings just for information, and they are planning a project. The first phase, they have a quote for to do field drainage on the upper field, right where the parking lot goes to the first fields. Those fields get very wet and they can't work in the spring on them. So they're looking at a quote to have the drainage fixed and a description of it. And then the second part would be for irrigation on the rest of the fields. Talked about the loss of use of these fields in the spring. I don't have all the details. I've listened to the discussions. I've looked at our Brentwood Recreation Center stewardship plan, and there are some concerns. What I did see on the map he showed me on Monday is that the drainage drains into undeveloped land on the recreation property. I understand they have maintained and kept the fields that are already developed, but the drainage would flow into undeveloped land. So I've asked Andy to come to our December meeting just to provide an overview. They haven't accepted the contract, but I thought since we're involved in this plan, that we should hear what they want to do so we know what's going on. So he would come to the December meeting. Okay, and he would bring the maps, et cetera, for this. So if you want to read anything, I think the stewardship plan is on the town website. Tells all about the vernal pools and the wetlands and the undeveloped land, so it's a good resource document to go into. So I've asked Andy to come to that. I'll make a note to that. Daphne spoke up last night thanking everyone who voted or who helped with the election day. 3,132 voters voted on election day, so that's an incredible return for Brentwood. She wanted to thank everyone for doing that. And also at Selectboard this week, there was a presentation by Casella about our current contract with them expiring at the end of this year. But for many reasons, they're possibly going to extend that while the details are worked out. But they're proposing an automated collection plan where those trucks with the arms would come out. You'd be issued a cart for trash and a cart for recycling. Sizes, there are 2 different sizes. But they're going to be discussing this at the next select board meeting with more details. So if you're interested, attend. Your opinions are welcome. They said it would save the town money in the long run. They want to move towards an automated system, but look at the select board agenda, look for the posting, but it'll be on the agenda next week, next time you meet. Are you meeting? You're meeting the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, right?
As far as I know.
Okay, so please keep your attention on what's going on in town. So that was,
Save money on your taxes if you only use a small bucket?
I don't know.
No, if you have less garbage,
No,
you don't get to save money?
no,
Pay more if you have more?
no.
I like the Exeter way, you have to buy a bag it.
Do you save money if you don't have kids in school? No. That's how
But
it
if you,
works.
but they charge us by the pound, don't they?
They do. The carts would be, there are two options, 65-gallon or 95-gallon. He's suggesting 95-gallon for refuse as well as recycling. He did mention something about, I know there are a lot of smaller households in town, real elderly people or retirees. Is there some provision for those who would not need 95? We can't even fill a 33 every week.
No, we barely.
So please express, if you provide someone with a larger cart, are they going to collect more garbage or more stuff, you know? You want people to,
No, I
Throw away
think the
less.
idea was that now you have up to
8 bags.
8 bags or 2
Yep.
45-gallon containers, which 4 bags would fit
Yeah.
into a 45-gallon. So if you're a family of 4 or 5, filling up 2 containers of garbage is not unusual. I'm just saying. So,
Never
so
had a family of 4 or 5, so I don't know.
yeah.
That's very unusual.
It's doable?
It's very, we do not make that much cash.
No, no.
I'm not talking.
It's a good
that-
discussion. It's a good discussion. So if you're interested, please express your opinion. You don't have to be there to express your opinion. You could watch the video and, well, you should make your comments before they talk about it. But if you have any concerns, please express it before, so it's recorded with the select board. Anyone else have any other topics to bring up? hate
I
to
just have
get us
something
late.
quick,
Yes?
which I don't know if we shared, but the Fuller and the most recent understory
Oh.
themselves, Fuller, you
I
printed out
made
copies. The
copies.
Fuller property was discussed. So I don't know if that got forwarded to you for the website or anything. I forwarded a copy that has the yes, this one that has the byline and everything.
Yep, yep. If you need enough, everyone have a copy? Yep. So this appears in their current magazine?
This is the fall. They have a
Fall.
lot of different magazines, but should be on
Okay.
the website somewhere.
Okay.
Fall 2024, the understory, which is all there in the byline.
Yep.
So I thought that was great, and I thought, again, if this could even be something that goes out to landowners as a future mailing, here's what's going
Yep.
on in town, which
Yep.
would be great. Would you want to be part of this or something?
I might put some in the pockets out front in our bulletin board. So it's an interview with Mrs. Fuller and quite a story. So anything else from anyone, topics that you want to discuss at meetings or ways we can make our meetings a little shorter, whatever you want to talk about? Thank you. Do I have a motion?
moved.
Oh, next meeting is December 11? 11. December 11. Why do I
It
have
says
9?
9th on your.
It says 9 there. That's my error. That's my son's birthday. That's my son's birthday. That's what I was thinking about. Okay. December 11. Second motion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone. So,
Going out tomorrow morning?
Maybe in the afternoon.
oh,
Get up this morning, 5:15.
It's cold too. It was cold. We are
Okay.
stocking Lamprey tomorrow.
Oh, really?